All right, boys and girls, we are back with another edition of the Federalist Radio Hour. I'm your host, Ben Domenech. You can email us, as always, at radio@thefederalist.com. I'm happy to be joined today by John Mates, who is the CEO and founder of the Parler app that you might have heard a little bit about in recent weeks. It's been a big couple of weeks for you, John. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I was interviewing the president on Friday, as it happens, and I asked him whether he thought he would be banned from Twitter before the 2020 election. And he said, yes, I do. And the next thing that he said was, some people tell me I should get on this Parler thing. Maybe I will. So
I hope he gives us a heads up.
Well, that might be as much heads up as you get. Just knowing
it could be. We'll be in a tweet next week. Let me tell you, it's a beautiful app. And then there's like 1 million people more.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about this app. But before we do any of that, you're a young entrepreneur. You've been getting a little bit more attention as this app has grown. Why did you start it? When did you start it? And how long have you been working on it?
So we started it in 2018. The original intent was to build something that people could share news without algorithmic bias or changes in algorithms kind of ruining referral traffic for publications. What we noticed early on is that they were acting more like publications than a town square. Mm-hmm. So our goal was to be town square. They're acting like publications. And what's really strange is people started going to them for news and saying, this is on Facebook, so therefore it's, trustworthy, or this is on, Twitter. And so we said, so people looked at them like, you have an obligation to curate the news because we're there because we trust you, not the publication anymore. And so people like the Federalist or any other media outlet, their name and their brand and their trust no longer meant anything to their readers. Not literally. I just mean in the realm of the social media world. The trust didn't matter anymore. It's, does Facebook sanction it and does Twitter sanction it? Somehow the responsibility of the publication fell on them. And we noticed that's a huge problem because they're not a publication. So we wanted to counterbalance that in the marketplace. Eventually, censorship started to take a bigger toll, as you'd expect when you have a biased publication filtering people's news. So, that's when we expanded the feature set to be a full town square. And that's why it's very similar to Twitter, and kind of like, it's like a mix of Twitter and Instagram is kind of what we're going for, because you see the big images, the big videos. It's not like these little tiny boxes like you have on Twitter, which are kind of obnoxious. They're nice and big in your feed. Mm-hmm. So, it just kind of skyrocketed out of nowhere.
And is your background in tech? Have you always been in this field?
Yeah. So I graduated with a computer science degree and mathematics. So I was minor in mathematics and major in computer science. Then I went and worked for the defense industry in San Diego for a bit. I held a security clearance, worked on the Reaper drones. I don't know if you've you probably did Obama's favorite tool.
Yes.
I was there during the Obama years, so they had a lot of business too. I worked on the Hellfire weapons deployment system, and it was interesting work, but it was very slow. It wasn't for me. I could not stand working for somebody. It drove me nuts. So then I decided to quit and start my own company, and my parents about disowned me. They told me I couldn't live at their house anymore because I quit my job. So I moved to Colorado with some of my friends, and because that's where I went to school. So I moved back to Colorado and started my own consulting business, which meant I had literally no work for like 6 months. And when I was about to run out of money, with like $100 left, I finally landed a contract doing software development for iPhone apps, and I'd never built an iPhone app. So I quickly figured it out and actually was better than their professional team, and ended up becoming their CTO after a year and a half or 2 years of running it. Then I got poached by Amazon and worked at AWS for 3 months and quit because it sucked. Mm-hmm. So no offense to Amazon. I couldn't stand it. Mm-hmm. It's too much for me. Living in Seattle, the whole thing. It's not not my deal.
So the idea, as I understand it, is, as you said, to have a town square, but the effect, the drive toward it, has been a lot of people who just anticipate that these entities, but particularly Twitter, are places that are very vulnerable to being exploited by and manipulated by groups of either leftists or woke brigades or complaining factions that are able to turn their anger into a megaphone. I mean, and that's not just true of within Twitter. You know, it's
It's
kind of
everywhere.
it's a kind of a joke.
Every public company seems susceptible to this.
Yes, and it's kind of a joke, in fact, frankly, among writers and media types, that, you know, whenever you see a piece, backlash forms around so and so doing such and such, then the question is always, okay, so how many tweets were in it, and how many of those people had like 300 followers or less? Because
they're trying to do the same thing to us. You know, we got notified that somebody is spamming Apple in the App Store right now, trying to get us taken down again. I don't. It's not going to happen. We're doing a really good job at managing our relationship this time, and we do have, moderation policies where you can be free to say whatever you'd like, but you can't just spam people with stuff. So if you don't like somebody, you can say, I don't like this group of people, I don't like this thing, but you can't just go on there and spam someone's account over and over again saying bad things about them. So we've got a middle ground relationship now where everyone understands and respects each other. But you're right. It's these woke mobs that just come up and they're like, let's get this thing canceled, this person fired from their job because we don't like them. They're typically much younger, and we're actually seeing a large influx of them on Parler just to mass report and screenshot stuff to send to people. And a lot of times the content's manufactured. It's not even real. They have their buddy make the account. They say awful, awful stuff. They've got like 3 followers and they get like 2 impressions, and they screenshot it and complain. And then I get a notice, that someone's trying to remove our app because of it. And it's like, that's crazy. You guys are nuts. If anybody can manufacture this, have you seen Twitter? They look the other way for much, much more egregious, awful, disgusting content. If you ever need examples, just look at Devin Nunes's posts. His comment section is littered, or even President Trump's comment section is littered with just the nastiest, most hateful stuff.
Coming through the experience that we had most recently with Google, it was just very amusing to me that they would describe our comment section as running afoul of their policies in terms of monetization, given that they own what is, from my perspective, undoubtedly the most toxic comment section on the internet, which is, of course, YouTube.
Yeah.
And it was entertaining to me that, okay, that's the thing you're going with. Okay, that's interesting. The thing that I'm curious about, and I want to get into the practical nature of how to use Parler, because I have a feeling that it's something that I'm going to have to use a lot more. I do have an account there. I haven't posted that much on it, but Molly Hemingway and Sean Davis, who both work with me and for me, are on there and pretty active, and we're certainly going to be on there and active going forward. But the element of it that I think is a key question for me is, how do you not just run into the same challenges that affected Twitter in terms of business and keeping things up and running? You obviously are having to bat down a number of different, groundhogs and stuff sticking their heads out of the ground, trying to troll you in different ways at the moment. How do you not run into a situation where they just kind of overwhelm you and succeed in forcing you out of these app stores?
So right now we are like scaling to keep up with it, because it's frankly a lot of work to manage all this content. We've got 7,000 flagged posts and comments. We don't actively flag. That's users flagging it. So we have a team that's growing. We've already grown the team immensely to keep an eye on it. We have strict terms of service, but it's not ideologically based. It's based in law and the FCC. So it's very fair. If someone reads it, they can say their opinion and whatever they feel and believe without worrying about getting taken down. And that's the point. It's town square. So what we're doing is we're actually, we're going to do kind of like a crowdsourced style of moderation that's going to help. And it's going to have checks and balances so people don't abuse it. But the concept should scale very rapidly and very quickly to stay on top of it. Twitter, I think, made a lot of mistakes because they really looked a blind eye to a lot of the bots and abusive users and the spammers. They seem to just not care about that. Their quality assurance when it comes to spam is very low. And so that creates these rage mobs. It almost encourages these rage mobs of youthful people who are very quick. Like I'm young and I can't even keep up with them and how quickly they're able to create these posts. And so they'll just spam Walmart, them and their friends. They'll have a Discord server, somewhere where they're all saying, "Hey, let's blow up Walmart about this racist, barbecue sauce." And they'll all have 100 accounts, 200 accounts spamming Walmart in minutes, and they'll think it's a legitimate complaint when it's really just a couple angry kids who, are on a group chat. So
it's very actually easy to detect when that happens. If you like me, occasionally run afoul of some major account, but also, one of the elements on Twitter that I have used for a long time, I think probably ever since they introduced it, is that I don't actually see your tweets if you don't follow me. And because I have, whatever, 120,000 followers or whatever, but it's like, if you're not even following me, then I don't really take your criticism all that seriously.
Yeah.
No. And so what happens is, you get into it with Jamel Hill or someone like that on Twitter, and she sends like a mob after you. But it's amusing because it will sometimes take you a while to recognize that it's happening, because you can't see any of their tweets, because they're just they're yelling at you, but none of them follow you because they don't, because they already hate you. So it doesn't really matter. That's something that is, to me, the experience of using Twitter these days, but it's not the way it always was. I remember back in the day, a long time ago, there was actual conversation to be had in the place, and people could go back and forth and have, I wouldn't say necessarily productive, but certainly you could change people's minds with conversation. It was a legitimate back and forth. Is that what you're trying to achieve with Parler?
That is 100% our goal, right? That's our goal. So if someone's getting on there and they're spamming just junk, and we define spam by in the comment section, not in posts. You can spam the people that follow you all you want. They're not going to follow you very long. So, and unlike Twitter and unlike Facebook, when you follow somebody, you look in your feed, you see who you're following in order of when they posted, regardless of how famous or, whatever status symbol they have on Twitter. Regardless of those points, you will see it in order. And so content is being seen. And so if you're not getting engagement, it's your fault. Not the platform, not trying to trick you, not doing anything. Everything's opt-in. So if you spam people, you're going to lose your following really quick. So
the people who have mostly migrated there are being framed by the corporate media as being crazy people, basically, and Trump supporters. To me, I don't think that's actually accurate. I think that many of the most prominent people are that. But do you view this as being essentially a place that could be a respite for both people who run afoul of corporate social media on the left and the right? And I ask you that in context because today Reddit announced that they would be banning both the Donald and Chapo Trap House from their platform, along with several thousand other subreddits.
I think it could be a place for everybody. We don't want to discriminate on any ideological basis at all, period. So I think it's going to become more prevalent because these people are so sensitive to cancel culture. So if anything gets unpopular, they're just going to cancel it. I think part of it is because they haven't really figured out, what's legitimately a complaint and what's not. And they're just erring on the side of safety to their, quote unquote brand, which I don't know what kind of brand they even have anymore. It's kind of a junk brand, but it's wrong. So that's what we're trying to go for. So if this group gets banned off of the Donald or off of Reddit, the Donald or the Trap House, they're more than welcome to join Parler, as long as they're not posting pornography, nudity, and using obscenities like, sexual obscenities, then you're fine. I mean, we don't have any ideological discrimination at all.
What will happen to Twitter's business if they do indeed ban the president of the United States?
I think they're going to tank. I mean, we've been #1 on the App Store above Twitter for the last over 48 hours now, going on 72. And we have only had an influx of 1 million people this week. It shows how few real people are actually on that platform. When you have somebody like Sean Hannity come onto Parler and instantly go up to like over 100,000 followers, or Ted Cruz, the first day he posts on Parler, gets over 1.5 million impressions, you know, and then you go back to Twitter and you're like, he never got, like, why are the numbers so much bigger over there? And a lot of it's because of algorithmic bias kind of ruining people's feeds. So you're not seeing stuff. And B, I don't think there's as many real people on there as they claim there are. And they've openly admitted they've got 20% of their network is bots. So if they're saying that's 20%, maybe it's more like 50%. And of that 50%, those bots probably do a lot more work than regular people in terms of loading content. So I think they're in trouble.
I've never really understood their business model or their approach to all of this. I do think that, you know, there's an opportunity here to create something different, but with that comes the danger that you'll be on the outs within the, you know, Silicon Valley superstructure. To me, Twitter's usefulness now is mostly to monitor the groupthink among corporate media journalist types, where you can see kind of ideas form live in front of you, and their stupidity is laid bare. I have to be on there for because of my job and because of my employees' job. They have to be on there too. But I would love to be more on a place that is, let's say, more useful in terms of conversation and people sharing information. Tell me a little bit about the utility of the app, what you would sell people on in terms of how they ought to use it and how they ought to think of it differently than they've thought of Twitter if they've used that in the past and maybe given up on it.
Well, the user interaction is different. At least it has been before this week. I haven't even had a breath to even take a look at what people are talking about right now. But, you know, historically on Parler, people could expect to just talk with people and have a disagreement without throwing dirt at each other. I've seen a large influx of trolls trying to throw dirt at people, so we'll see. We're trying to keep that down, but, you know, through talking to everybody and telling them, hey, this is not what we're about. But you can expect to see more moderation tools on your own personal behalf and less on behalf of the company. So you have more tools over your profile and what you'd like to see and what you'd not like to see in terms of comments. You can moderate any comment away that you'd like because your profile is your property. And if you don't like somebody on your property, you have the right to throw them out. And so those are the kind of tools you'll expect on Parler. And you know, you'll also see bigger images, you'll see bigger videos. You know, your feed is going to be different. You're going to see more of your friends, not just big high profile people showing up. So, you know,
I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up now and just ask you to tell me a little bit about it. There's a couple different icons at the bottom of your feed. There's basically what looks like a comment icon. There's a little megaphone icon, which I guess is echo. There's an up arrow, and then there's kind of a graph, which I assume is looking at interactions or something like that. Tell me what each of these are.
So starting on the left, you have your comments. Those will show up underneath your post. And so you comment, and it's only to the person who created the post and all the people that follow that person. And you make your first comment is more of like a topic. So you might say something like, you know, I completely disagree with you on this ground, right? And then underneath that comment are going to be sub comments, which are people talking about that person and engaging with them.
Yeah, I'm just holding it up so people can look at it. Yeah.
Perfect. And then, and so then you can engage that way in the comment section. There's a little known trick that people don't always notice is there should be a colorful little triangle in the top right-hand corner of Too Deep comments. So when you get to the comment section, if you click that, it shows only the people that are on that comment thread. So you can navigate comments that way.
Okay.
The megaphone is an echo, and you can echo it with a comment, or you can echo it just plain. And that's basically it's the equivalent of a retweet, essentially. And you can either add a comment to it or not. And then you have your vote icon, which is vote is you're showing support and standing with the person or just acknowledging that you saw their post.
Okay. In terms of looking at what
Hmm?
kind of interaction your post has had or the kind of reach that it's had, how do you do that, and what does it tell you?
Well, we're pretty transparent about it. So every single parlay, we call them parlays, Parley. Anyway, every single parlay has impression numbers near the username at the top. So it'll tell you how many people saw it, or at least how many times it showed up in people's feeds. It doesn't mean it's a unique person that saw it. It just means that's how many times it was seen. So we're trying to be transparent about that. Uh, and then you'd mentioned a little statistic button, which you can click, and it also tells you the number of direct views when someone engages with it as well.
Cool. And what about this tip button?
So tipping is something really new. We were planning on rolling it out, and we got halfway through rolling it out, and then we just started exploding. So we might be playing around with that in the next couple of weeks as more and more people seem to be using it. The idea is you can give money to the person who created the post, and you can say, hey, nice post, or you can support their comment, or you can support the person's work. We take a small fee. It's like 5.75% of whatever you give somebody, but they get to keep the rest and kind of make a business out of whatever work they're doing on Parler.
I think that I think that this is one of those things where it'll take a little bit of getting used to because you're so used to different systems. But what I've heard from a number of different people who have been using it for a while is that, after a couple of days with it, you get the hang of it, and that it's actually, pretty intuitive. Just given the fact that you have this, pressing increase in the number of people who are joining, is that going to pose problems for you in rolling out various aspects of this or improving it, just because you're going to have to deal with a much bigger user base?
Yeah, with more people comes more problems. So it's not as easy. You can't just tweak code. Like if you go back a year ago and we said, hey, we want to implement a tipping feature, just like, okay, give me a lunch break and I'll take care of this. Now it's like, well, now we got to contact the server engineers. We got to contact this to make sure it'll scale. Then we got to go contact an accounting firm. So it's like, it's crazy how much more difficult everything gets exponentially as you add more features and you grow. So it's no wonder there's very few people in this space trying to take on Twitter and Facebook and all these guys, because there's such a huge company with so many features that building it and scaling it is ridiculous. So I think we're just crazy enough to do it. That's all.
What's one question I would have for you is, what's the best way to embed video in the app?
If you directly upload it to the app, it's best. It plays really nicely in the feed, but you can put YouTube videos in there too. We like to be able to support YouTube videos in the feed.
Cool. And in terms of the link traffic and things like that, I don't know which social sharing elements out there have added Parler to their list of available functions. I know that ours that we use for the Federalist doesn't have it yet. But do you expect that to change? I would think it would do so organically just as your size grows.
Yeah, I hope they start contacting us to add it. We contacted them a long time ago and said, hey, will you guys have us on there? And they said, no. Almost all of them universally. And some of them would say, oh, let me refer you to this person and then refer you to that person. And then it would just die out. So we're like, you know what? Okay, none of the share people want us. So we made our own little share button that people can add. And in the meantime, we're asking all the publications to contact the share companies and tell them, hey, why don't you support Parler? We want Parler. And so anybody who wants to see those buttons appear, we just have to basically do the reverse cancel culture on the share tools and send armies of people to tell them they want Parler buttons.
Have you engaged in any stupid Silicon Valley, over the top promotional actions or anything for Parler, or is it all mostly word of mouth?
We have had a really, really strict rule. No Google, no Facebook. So we've done literally 0 online ads, not one. Some people have come in and tried to pitch us on them over and over again. And every single time we tell them, okay, can you guarantee us a sign-up rate at less than 1 penny per user? Because that's what we're currently getting with just organic traffic. And they're like, are you insane? I said, well, to be honest, I don't want to support Google and their ad business. If we're going to try to compete with them, we need to compete with them and not use them. So that was our goal.
What kind of pressure do you feel like you'll be under if you continue to see this kind of success? Just given that, the CEOs of a lot of these companies end up becoming public figures or semi-public figures where they're expected to rule from on high, like the Pope or something like that on every
Yeah.
decision that's made. Are
I
you at
mean,
all concerned about that?
I don't like that because I made a post last night. There was a bunch of kids, and I found out they were kids. I thought it was like some organized Antifa group at first, that were creating fake Trump supporting accounts, and they're just saying silly things. And there was like hundreds of them. And I thought, this is very weird. So I went around and I managed to find one of their Discord private chat rooms, linked to it. So I literally joined their private chat group, and they all have these fake, like, you know, Black Lives Matter flags and like all this stuff is their profile and fake names. And there's like John Mates comes into the chat, and I just said hi, and they're like, holy, you know what? It's him. And then they banned me immediately. But it was so funny. I made a post about it on Parler, and some people are like, why would you discriminate against their group? And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just trolling them, and I think it's hilarious. Why are you guys being so serious? Like, can't I have fun? Have I lost that right now because of the app? That's not cool.
I think that there's there are unique windows that happen where products that have been quite irritating to many people for a long time very quickly break down and disappear. That's been true particularly in the tech space, where you can have something that looks like it's dominant and then quickly becomes, I mean, just look at what happened to MySpace, and so there's moments where new products come along and can seize the opportunity. One of the arguments that has taken place in recent years on the right in the policy space has been about monopoly power. To me, I don't and have never viewed Twitter as being something that actually had enough power to be considered a monopoly, as opposed to something like Google, which I think you can make a much stronger argument, particularly in the streaming video space.
Oh yeah, no, Google by almost any metric is a monopoly.
Yeah. Exactly. And to me, Twitter, though, it always has been kind of giving them too much credit to be a monopoly, because people don't really like it, and they use it very differently than they did 8 or 9 years ago. And so I've kind of been waiting for something to come along and kill it pretty quickly. Do you think that you have built effectively a Twitter killer?
Well, I think it's the start.
Yeah.
Right. It's the start. I mean, obviously you're going to go on and you're going to say, okay, it feels a little like it. First off, I think our graphics are much like the way the graphics show up in the feed and everything that we're trying to do is completely much better. Mm-hmm. However, we've spent peanuts on our app compared to Twitter. I mean, Twitter's got what, billions of dollars. They've got a $22 billion valuation or something ridiculous like that. And, we haven't even spent maybe 0.5% of that, on this platform. So, you're going to see some things that we're going to have to just ramp up. There's going to be some tools that are missing, but it's going to be easy, in my opinion, to take them out. Not going to be easy to take out Google. Not going to be easy to take out Facebook. Those guys are kind of stuck where they are. But Twitter hasn't innovated in years, and their app is confusing as all get out. I can't figure it out, and I've only used it like 5 times anyway. I followed a couple of people once, and I was like, this thing's dumb. So. And then people come to Parler and they're like, it's not Twitter. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Like, it's different. So we'll be able to out-innovate them, and we'll be able to take this over. We're really creative, and we don't give up. So
one element of this that I do think was a huge mistake on Twitter's part was leaning so hard into algorithms as opposed to banning something that you recognized much earlier, which is spam bots. To me, spam bots are a much bigger change and shift in the way that I used Twitter, and they made the experience so irritating, and the inability of other people necessarily to like not interact with them was also kind of irritating. And to me, the algorithms never solved anything. It was almost like you had to construct complicated filters.
They did solve a few things. They stopped people from speaking their mind, because when you create a post, they're like, are you sure this might hurt someone's feelings? Are you sure you want to make this? Or they'll just bring CNN in to do a fact check on you. But like, in that regard, they're a success. But I mean, if you look at it from a standpoint of what people really want, what the market wants. It's just not. They've made poor choices. They're kind of like a political action committee. They're just deciding who they want to win the election and trying to manipulate people's opinions, and it's wrong.
Mhm.
And frankly, I think if you just focus on higher quality engagement, get rid of the spam, get rid of the junk that's just not serious, and focus on, if somebody says something that's unpopular or that you think's fake, if that's a genuine person and that's their genuine belief, then they should be able to do that. That's their thought. That's what they want to say. Then the world should debate it with them. And that's their right. And that's their right in the Constitution. And it's just hard to translate that into online activity where people can spin up 50 accounts and they control people with, fake profiles. So keeping
one element, one element of that I've always been mindful of is, when you start going out and banning people or shutting them down for expressing opinions, and tagging those opinions as being, dangerous or wrong or needing to be fact checked by the platform. One of the things you inevitably end up doing is you drive those opinions out of the public square where they can be easily countered into their own little fiefdoms and kind of cul-de-sac communities where those ideas can fester and grow. In other words, I would much rather have a platform that says, if Jenny McCarthy wants to come on and say some anti-vaxxer stuff or something like that, where you say, okay, it's better for her to say that and then have the next, the comments be 100 people saying, no, you're wrong. Here's the link that proves you're wrong, et cetera, than saying, oh no, you should go over and play in this anti-vaxxer community with all your other anti-vaxxer friends.
Yeah, you're going to walk out like, there's like 100%. I'm right. I'm God. So you're right. No, 100%. I mean, I think kicking people out of the community is extremely dangerous. And I think that, and I said this a long time ago, I haven't said it lately, but I said that Twitter is actually like a hate creation machine. If you want to talk about partisanship in this country, if you allow only one group of people to completely run on that platform and you give them free reign to say all sorts of hateful, mean stuff to one side, and then if the other side counters back, they get banned, then you've now created some kind of festering community somewhere where people are going to start getting more radical and more violent. They feel picked on. So yeah, they're hyper partisan and they're creating this huge divide in our country. And I think just letting people talk to each other and work their problems out is a much better, more American solution than whatever they're trying to do.
John Mates, thanks so much for taking the time to join us to tell us about Parler. People can find your app on both the Google Play and the Apple App Store. They can go to parler.com. That's PARLER.com. And you are at John on Parler, so they can follow you there. Thanks so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you. Take care.
I'm Ben Dominich. You've been listening to another edition of the Federalist Radio Hour. We'll be back soon with more. Until then, be lovers of freedom and anxious for the fray.